Hello, everybody, and welcome to RoxAnneLava Monday Mission. And here we are again. Today, I am going to talk to you about a number of things that I have been working on. And you all, if you've been following, will know that I've been working on a few events. Let me just say with you that, hey, Neil, I am going to have sort of a mishmash today, and that really is the life of a solopreneur. So I wanted to tell you about 3 or 4 items today. And what we'll start with is, if you were with me last week, you will know that I was working on a photo shoot for a new promo video. And that is something that I wanted to just follow up with you on, and I'm going to show you a slideshow of some of the photos that I've created. But what I wanted to first say and first discuss was, I just wanted to tell you about the planning for a photo shoot and actual execution of a photo shoot. And these things can be kind of really very different. So first of all, let me remind you that I went to meet my photography collaborator at Valley Forge Park in Pennsylvania, which is where I live. And we had a specific space that we were going to meet, and it was actually the Washington Memorial Chapel. Now, I chose this place for several reasons. One, it was relatively close to where my photo collaborator lived. 2, the chapel is a place that is where people have weddings, so it's a church. So it had the wedding theme to it, and it gave us a good option of wedding. But it also, I thought, would be a place where we would have access. They have a gift shop, so I thought we'd have access to a restroom, etc. Okay, so let's just start with that. What should have been about a 30-minute journey for me turned into an hour and something minute journey for me out, because there was some work going on one of the main roads, which I couldn't get around. So this made me late. So this started a snowball effect. And let's just talk and think about it, first of all, from the light effect. So the light effect is, the light's changing throughout the day. So that's going to affect what your resulting images look like. And you have to work with that light. I also wanted to go back and say the other reason that I chose Valley Forge Park is because it had lots of non-wedding views, right? It's a big park, so there was a lot of broad field views, woods, etc. And it has a number of parking lots as well. And what I really needed to do was get into the parking lot and work in the parking lot for much of what I was doing. You may also recall, but if you weren't here for or haven't watched the last show, that one of the things that I'm doing is trying to broaden the experience. So the theme of this event is, or the theme of this promo, is that a wedding is far more than just one day. And in fact, it kind of is a commemoration of everything that's come before and a celebration of everything that is to come in your life with your chosen partner. And so I wanted to show a broad group of things. Some of you might remember that last time, or if you weren't here, I was talking about doing some video clips. So anyway, I'm now about an hour late for the start of the shoot. So get started just talking about the shoot. I also need to use a restroom, which now is a 10-minute car ride away. So I decide that I won't be using a restroom and we'll be just starting with the shoot. So we find a parking lot that we're going to use. We don't actually ever use the chapel. And we do a 2-hour photo shoot. Now, the other thing you want to remember is when you are working with a photographer and when we're out in a particular place, we now have the light issue, but we now have to also control the light. So for each shot that you are taking, it's important for you to understand that there's camera setup. There also might be shade setup. We have big sort of circular things that will help us to control the shade. So they have to be set up. They have to be set up within the context of the shot. And so it's not just like going out there and shooting with your iPhone or whatever you have. It's not just a shot that we take off of the cuff. So it's relatively complicated. And at the end of the 2 hours, I had from my photographer what he considered to be 28 usable shots. So now keep in mind, I was always going to do a secondary photo shoot at my home that was going to incorporate with all of this, which I did. So I wanted to show you sort of, and I'm going to share my screen with you, what I did. So first of all, I had to edit my plan based on the materials that I now have and the criteria that I now have. It's all good. It's fine. But again, I just wanted you to understand this process. You know, you go with this plan, you have this idea, and then perhaps what comes out of that plan and that idea is something that leads you to the next iteration of your plan. So I'm going to show you where I'm at right now by sharing my screen with you, and you're going to start to see some of the things that I did. So my initial phase here is talking about your wedding and the fact that it is more than just one day. So this is first section, the first 3 or 4 slides, or the first 3 slides, are just about your wedding. Now, I had to get creative because I have shoes and things, but I was also married once, so I have some things from my wedding that I've incorporated in some of these photos. The shoes are new, the bouquet is new, and the scarf and the what's on the table are other things that I own, but they are all things I made. The shoes, for example, the handbag is one of my handbags. I got the flowers for a particular reason, and if you were with us last time, you saw them. So here's kind of where I went. Now, this is one of his photos, which is really intensely beautiful because it's highly detailed and it's very saturated in color. And it's different from this one that I took from my iPhone. Okay. Again, we're in a very different light setting here, and we're in a very interesting background. And if you know anything about photography, the other thing I can tell you here is, because we have such intense detail on the front, you may notice that the things in the back are actually sort of fuzzy, and that is what we wanted. That is what I wanted. It's using your depth of field to really bring attention to the items that we're bringing attention to. And here is another image, another view of that image. So this will be where I'm talking about your wedding. And then I'm going to ask in my video if you are bold, sophisticated, retro, modern, etc. So I have about 8 of these items, and I had to kind of start and bring it down. So here we are with, this is bold. Are you bold? And again, it's just, this is a riot of color, texture, shine, and it really, you know, I think speaks to over the top kind of bold. And here is another photo that he did, which is, again, highly detailed and fuzzy in the background. And then we're moving into refined. Now, you might recall, and if you didn't know, we were using this play on cars, the American muscle car Mustang, my car, and the sexy European sports car, vintage Jag, his car. Okay, so I've now kind of moved, this is still into a refined and a refined. And now we've moved into sort of modern and more modern and more modern. And now we're into vintage and vintage and vintage. And now we're into romantic, romantic, romantic. And now we're into kind of edgy and edgy. And you'll notice that I have my foot with the edgier shoe on the Mustang. Edgy again. And now we're into whimsical, 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 eclectic, and eclectic, 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 and retro. Okay, and so now we have, now here's where I'm at the end. So this is whether you're shopping with your mom, having brunch with the girls, walking down the aisle with your father, or cozying up with your honey. Whatever style you are, it's your day. Choose RoxAnneLava shoes because every occasion is a special occasion. So essentially that's where I'm going. Now I have it down to 37 slides. I may still need to do another edit. I have extra slides. So the way that I work it is I start with a number of slides that I think will work. And then I have a bunch of extra slides that I hold back. Now with those extra slides, what will happen is when I'm working with my collaborator on making the video, he'll choose and he'll think and he'll come up with, and we'll think about some ways to make these things work. And what you need to understand is I will be doing voiceover on some of those slides so that there will be some talking and then there will be music in between there. And so the music is something else that a friend of mine has done, and we're going to try and give it a go with that. He created that for me. It may not be the right one for the bridal stream, so I'm not exactly sure if that's the music we'll use, but it is his own creation, so I don't have to worry about any copyright. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about with this is that you need to just think about the fact that when you're using things, who owns them? So generally, if you're working with something with a small project and it's something that has a copyright attached to it, it's not going to be too big a deal, especially if you're not making money off of it. But there are a number of things where you can look at commons licenses and you can find non-copyrighted items for you to use. So just to recap, my photographer has no problem with me using these things for what I'm using them for. The other photos are mine, so I own the rights to them. And the music that I am going to use is owned by my friend who has given me permission to use them. So we're all good with that. So anything to do with this and put together is going to be okay. And if for some reason my video collaborator has to change what's going on and has to use different music, he'll use copyright-free music. So those things are all really important to do. I just wanted to also say to you that, you need, when you are doing this kind of work, more is better, because the more choice you have, the better it will become in the end. Part of what I might need extra images for is also for adding some length to the video. I'm not sure once we get it done how long it will be. It needs to be about 3 to 5 minutes. So it depends how long I talk. It depends how we work on that. And so those are some things that I'm still working on, and I have to work on them this week. And while I said I might do a voiceover with those images, the other thing that I might do is I might just do my own video. I'm known to do them. I've done them in the past. So I might do little video clips, particularly in the beginning, talking about your wedding and talking about that day. And I might even do something with, I don't know, maybe a little photo montage or something that might work. So I'm still working on that. It's still in process, but I really need to get the pieces of this all to my video collaborator by the end of the week. So it's absolutely important that he have those ASAP. So that's what I'm working on in terms of the photo. Okay, now the second thing that I wanted to share with you is, well, I got a few things, so now I can get out of sharing the screen, and it's just going to be me for a couple minutes. So you all know, or if you've watched before, you'll know that I put together a package, and this package has to do with a foot scrub and a foot soak and a number of other things that actually is a gift package that you can send to somebody or can be used as part of an online virtual party, or as we go through vaccinations and are able to see each other again, this could be a face-to-face party. Now, in the face-to-face world, I had put my foot scrub and my foot soak in these little ball jars, and I love them because they're very me and they work really well. Reusable, they fit my brand. They really have sort of everything about me. It's retro, and it's reusable. So that's a really important thing. But I sent one out and did not have these items in a box inside my mailer. And they arrived with one of these bottles broken. Now that I don't like because these are not super expensive, but they're not inexpensive. So that's put me on another search for what could I use or how can I package these in order that they will not be broken as they are taken along and mailed to people. Now, so a couple of things. I try to be sustainable and environmentally sound. And so what is happening here is that I could buy plastic vessels. They won't be as good as this, but that's not really what I would want to do. I could package it all in a box and then package that in a mailer, but that is increasing the amount of things you have to contend with. I could wrap it all in bubble wrap, but then the person receiving it is stuck with bubble wrap. So I've been trying to consider and think about what I might use. So I came up with, I thought about seeds that you purchase and grow. And I thought, oh, they come in seed packs. These might be very good. So I found these seed packs, right? And, they'll pack flat. They're sustainable because you can get rid of them. They're paper and all of that. So I am testing right now both my foot soak, which is in this one, and my foot scrub, which is in this one. Now, I don't know if you can see, but there is oil in my foot scrub, and now that oil is coming out on the envelope. So I'm leaving this overnight to see how much it really comes through the envelope, what it does to the foot scrub, and whether or not I can live with this. So I have another thought. One of the other things that I do is I include a coffee filter or two with this paper. so that you can actually collect the coffee from your drain, and you can dispose of it in a compost pile or in your trash. And so it may be that that could be a way to package this with the filters around it so that it doesn't rub off on anything else. But I'm concerned that it will make the actual scrub too dry. So I'm moving along with that particular process as well. And that is particularly important today because I'm also finishing up. I was working on a couples package. So man's pair, woman's pair. So I am right today just finishing the actual shoes. And so what that means is that I have a number of processes that I need to do to get them in order to be packed. And what I want to send with this is the foot soak and some foot scrub as part of the gift package. So these things are all working together, and my deadline on this is Wednesday. Some of the things that I have to do is I have to remove any errant glue from the tops of these, and that happens with a rubber eraser that helps to remove the glue. And then I'm also finishing the edge of the sole here, and I do that with a burnisher. And then I will be adding some neutral polish to this, shoe polish to this, and then they will pretty much be ready to go. So that's my next project, which is getting this out. All right. And this is my prototype pair. So it was given as a gift during one of the bridal shows so that I could test it out. And it's a good testing ground for me, that solo, the showcases, because if I give a gift, it allows me to put things together, to rework them, to do different versions of them. So that has been a really great way to test items. Okay. The other thing that I did want to talk to you about also is that I think we may have discussed, but I'll say it again. My local newsletter, my local neighborhood newsletter, has been kind enough, and this is one that we've put out on, it's an email newsletter, and they also have an Instagram and a Facebook. So one of the things that they have been trying to do is they have been trying to help local businesses by giving them a little shout out and a support. So I was able to get one with my local newsletter in terms of an Instagram post. It has not yet appeared in the local newsletter, and I'm not sure if it will, but they did give me a good Instagram post. And so what I need to do this week is to follow up and see if I've gained any followers from that particular post. So that's an important next step. Now, the other thing that I've been working on, and I've been working on this for a very long time, is a boot. And I want to show you sort of where I am with this boot. This is going to be a wedge bootie. I'm going to move you up so you can see me again. Okay. So you know the drill. If you've seen me before, we got to move over to here, and I'm going to bring you down a little so you can see a bit of what's going on my board. So this particular pair of boots is pretty interesting. It's going to be a wedge bootie, okay? And this is my heeled last. So this wedge bootie fits fairly well on my heeled last. It's not exactly right, but it's okay, all right? I think maybe you guys can just see here that there's a little bit of space, but it's pretty good here. It works fairly well. So we're all good with that one. Now, what I did is, you all have seen me use before this this pre-made insole. And usually what I do is I just change the tip of the shoe to fit the tip of the last. This is not the correct size for this one, you guys, but you can see that the insole, pre-made insole, is not the same shape, so I can cut the same shape here. This is for my square toe. So in fact, this is exactly what I could do for my square toe. This is another project that I have been working on and showing you guys, but I will be coming back to that one shortly too. What's exciting to me about this one is I took leather and I created a custom insole. And the way that I did that was I cut my insole out of the leather. I taped it to the shoe, to my last, and I soaked it in water till it was all wet, and then I let it dry. And I came up with two really nicely fitting insoles. So I'm excited now to use these, because the beauty of the wedge with a heel is that the wedge itself provides the support. So once this is on the wedge, okay, I don't need to do anything else except put a sole that will go here onto the wedge. Okay, so I don't need anything else in here but another piece of leather or a piece of soling material that will be cut to fit from here to here. And so this makes it really nice. It also has a really super low profile here, so it will also be helpful and really thin and nicely done to create a lovely edge here, not a whole lot of bulk. Now, on the downside, it doesn't have any padding. So if you're somebody who really likes a comfortable shoe, this is not going to be great for you. But for me, I happen to not worry about that kind of stuff. So this is going to be okay for me. And I'm going to really love it. So then I've been working with what's the upper. And this here is essentially my upper, because remember, I make mules. Okay. So when I make a mule, it means the back has to be open. Now there is one thing that does have to happen here, and that is that I do actually need to have a piece that's going to come across here and a piece that's going to come across here. I want to make a small buildup in the back, I think. But here is how the boot will look. So it's going to be here with the tall, and then it can also fold down if I want it to. Okay, so I'm again back in my studio trying to work on this particular one, and what you maybe can see here in terms of the boot is that it needs to be put together here. Currently, it's just glued on this seam, but I don't want it just to be glued. I want it to be really secure. Okay. So one of the things I started to do was to see if I could use studs to do that. And I can, but unfortunately, the issue is that this is going to make it kind of heavy. These studs are going to make it kind of heavy. And smaller studs don't work as well, and it feels kind of awkward, even though I'm a hardware kind of girl. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to sew it. And so what that means is that I'm going to use waxed thread, okay, and a needle. And the first thing that I will have to do is I will have to make, I'm going to have to make marks where all the stitches are going to go, okay. They have to be the same on this one as on my second one. And then what I will have to do is I will have to use an awl, which is this, let me see, where is it? This lovely tool. And wherever the stitch hole is, I will have to open that hole up with the awl and put my needle through. Now I'm going to do a double needle, so I'll show you this, I hope, next time, but I need to practice a little on this one. And then the other thing that's been kind of exciting about it is I've been having a hard time because I really want to use the upcycled furniture leather here. And this is part of it. But in the black that I have, it has a kind of texture on it that I don't like so much. I have something with a smoother texture in black that I really love. But now I've decided that I also kind of like this gray. So but I don't have enough to make 4 pieces for the upper. So what I am now going to do is I'm going to combine the gray and the black. And so what will happen is, you've seen me do this before if you've seen my shoes. Half of it will be black, half of it will be gray. So I think the exterior side will be black, the interior side will be gray. And then what I will do on the heel is the opposite. So if this is the exterior, it will be black upper, gray bottom, and gray upper, black bottom. Why would I do that? These are quirky little things that make my shoes mine, and they are the things that make me enjoy making shoes. And they're the things that I do when I wear them, and I always wear my prototypes. So that's kind of where I am with this particular project today. And the last thing that I wanted to tell you is, so the final thing that I need to work on this week is that my party that I've created is a Show Us Your Shoes party, and it's based on the Miss America pageant, Show Us Your Shoes. And so the final thing that I need to accomplish this week is to do some research into the Show Us Your Shoes. I'm going to write an article that I will then post, but also send out to local media to be printed in their online or print versions. And that was something that I did in the beginning of 2020 and had some great success with. I haven't had as much success with those articles being picked up during the height of the pandemic, but I think that it might be time now for people to look for other things, and that this might be kind of a fun and new, different thing for some of the local newspapers to pick up. So I'm going to give that a go. So with all of that being said, let me just take a minute. I'm going to flip you around to show you one of my finishing processes. Let me see if I can see you yet. And then I'm going to just recap what we have done today. Yep. Okay. All right. So this is going to be a little noisy. It has to be. But what I'm trying to do here is finish these edges so they don't look super raggedy. And what I love to use, and this is really a solopreneur's friend, is a Dremel tool. You can do so many things with a Dremel tool. I use them for a lot of finishing processes, but you can put so many different stuff. You can use a drill in this. You can use a wire brush in this. You can use sandpaper in this. You can use buffers with this. And so I'm just using a buffer. in this particular shoe or slipper that I made, this sole is actually a piece of bookbinding material. It's leather, but so it acts a little bit differently than other leathers that I've used. So I am going to just kind of show you how we do this. And you start with a little water, and this is just plain water. And you take that and you push it down an edge that you are going to buff. Now, usually I sand and buff, but this particular bookbinding leather is very thin and fairly hardy. So all I'm going to do is buff it. I have a little bit of a buffer on my tip. And so here's what I do. So I'm really just touching the edges. And I'm just kind of getting them to flatten out, meld down a little. It just gives it the edge a little bit of a finished edge, so it doesn't look so clunky and raw. So every time I just do a section at a time. And again, it doesn't take much. And you just go slow and carefully. Now, these are a test pair, as I said. So this is the first time that I'm working with these particular materials. And that is one of the reasons that you always want to have prototypes or tests, because it's really important to understand what you're doing in terms of, like, if I'm going to replicate this. So, you know, this is not the first iteration of the shoe or the slipper that I've used, but this is the first iteration that I've used this pre-bought insole in combination with other things. And so this took me down a design path that I had to think about in terms of what I had. And let me just step back in. I'm going to flip you around and show you a second exactly what I mean. So these were considered to be his and her, or her and her, or his and his shoes. But in this case, they're his and her. And so on the his, what I think you can see is that my insole had a fabric finish to it. That's the gray that's there. And now you can see the brown undersole. My woman's one did not have that finish. So I had to put a leather finish around the edge before I added the outsole. So again, these are design decisions that you have to make as you are working through the process. And that's why you need to do the prototyping and the work, because it wasn't until I bought the test insoles that I realized that there was this difference. So working through those differences and figuring out how you're going to make it work are important. And once you get to the component parts that you like, that's then where you would invest and put your money in so that you could do that. Okay, so let's take a moment to just sort of recap where we've been today and just take a second to show you all again where I am. So last week was all about this photo shoot. It was a long and difficult photo shoot, mostly because there was a lot of traffic on the way out and there was a lot of traffic on the way back. Out of that photo shoot, I got about 28 images, and from that photo shoot, I knew that I'd get about probably 28 to 30 images. It was a total photo shoot of probably about 2 hours, but the day turned into about a 5 to 6 hour day. And that's because of the driving and the traffic in both directions. The thing that was most important to me to remind everybody is that you can have a great plan, but then that plan is going to change. So you have to be open-minded and able to work out on a second's notice and be very flexible that something's going to change or things are not going to happen the way they're going to happen. You also, when you're outside, are working with the light, and you have to understand that as you are working, the light is changing. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And you also have to understand that when you are working with a photographer, you've got the setup of the camera, you've got the setup of the lighting, you've got a number of things that are slightly different than taking snapshots in the same place of tabletop displays with your iPhone, which is what the other part of the photo shoot was. So once again, I'm going to just share my film with you, my screen with you, and I'm going to show you my where I'm now. So I've put together a number of images. I have 37 so far. I'm not sure that I'm done with this because I have to really consider what I'm doing. But the opening 3 are really about the wedding, when I'm going to talk about the wedding. And again, I might do a totally different intro video. The next thing is that we're going through a series of kind of questions about what kind of wedding or what's your style. So we've got bold, we've got refined, we've got modern, we've got vintage, we've got romantic, we've got edgy, we've got whimsical, we've got eclectic, retro, and then I'm asking questions. So this replicates shopping with your mom. This replicates brunch with your friends. This replicates walking down the aisle with your dad. And this one replicates getting cozy with your honey. And at the end, this is where we'll talk about, whatever your style, choose RoxAnneLava shoes, because every occasion is a special occasion. And that right now is the idea. So what I'm going to review these for, and what's really important to review these for, because this is something that's always kind of an issue. Because this is my wedding, I want it to be broader than the wedding. I need to have some lifestyle images in there that you, as the viewer, would imagine that you're seeing and looks pretty good. But the other thing that's really important is thinking about these transitions. So for example, I'm not sure that this to this is a good transition. So I need to consider that, because we're pretty much using the same shoes, but in this one we've got the dress, and in this one we don't have all the shoes, but we have the bouquet, but same car. So I'm conflicted about that. Another thing is when we get into sort of, let me just see. So here's when we get into the romantic one. I think the question is, do I have too many, right, with this shoe? But see, this is the over shot, the head over shot, the bird's eye view plan shot, and this is the face on shot of the same thing. So maybe what really needs to happen is that I need to switch this one and this one so that I have a break from upholstered shoe here to here. These are the ways that you try to refine it and look at it and consider so that it doesn't look like too much of the same. The other question that I've had throughout is the images of the blue. This is a great style. It's one that I really do want to promote for brides, but also for anybody. But yet, I'm not sure. I feel like somehow it maybe stands out too much because the blue is very blue. And based on the other non-wedding shoes that I have, it seems to be a little bright to me. So I need to now think about that kind of as an accent color and see if there's enough rhythm and repetition of it throughout my my slideshow. So those are elements that I'm going to go back and look at and work with. The second thing that I talked to you about today was that I'm looking for an alternative to this jar, this little mason jar that I love, because it is a real problem for me if these break when they go into the mail. And I want to be careful about it because I don't want to just continue to add more and more packing, because that puts a problem on the other end for my receiver to have to work with things that maybe they can't recycle very easily. So, as I said, I found these envelopes that are like seed packs, seeds that you would plant and grow. And it's working pretty well right now for my foot soak. But I was concerned about it in terms of my foot scrub because there's oil in my foot scrub. And I'm worried about how this is actually going to come out. And you might see that if we looked at it even a little bit before when I showed it to you earlier in the show, I think that it's taking up a lot more. So what I've been doing is I'm taking photographs of this so that I can see the sequence of how much is soaking up, how quickly. And then what I'm going to do is determine whether or not this is an appropriate way to go, because it may be too dry. If it's soaking up the oil, it may take too much oil out of the foot scrub, and that will be a problem. So then I'm going to maybe need to wrap it in beeswax paper before it goes in here. But these may be a good way for me to work on not having the problem of the jars. And then if I do a face-to-face party, people there can get the jars. So those are some elements that I'm thinking about there. The next thing that I showed you was my boot, which is coming along. Okay, I'm excited about the boot. And I showed you that we're working with a wedge. And the wedge is always a great thing when you have a heel because it doesn't require any reinforcement in the insole. The wedge provides the reinforcement itself. I showed you that I made a leather insole for this boot. And the way that I did that was that I took a piece of leather that was cut to the insole size. I matched it to the last and I taped it down. I soaked these in water. I pulled them out and let them dry. And I ended up with my lovely insoles. So now I can move forward with that. And I talked to you a bit about my trouble with my leathers, so that I've decided that I'm going to use gray and black. So we should see some interesting stuff there. And I talked to you about not just wanting to glue this seam, but also to sew it. You see that I had tried with some studs, but I think they're too clunky. I think they're too heavy. And I think that I don't think they look that great. So studs might be a great decoration for this, but not for that. So what I'm going to use is hand sewing. And I will probably show you that in the next week or so, and actually not next week. But that this requires some waxed thread and the use of an awl. And that's super important. And finally, I think I talked to you about getting some PR from my local newsletter, and that I'm going to go back to writing an article about my Show Us Your Shoes party. And I'm going to look at the history of the Show Us Your Shoes parade in terms of Miss America to draw the connection there. And then I showed you that I was working on buffing my sole for my couples slippers package. And so I'm going to continue and finish to fix this. And then what I will do is I'll give it a nice polish, and then I'll start to put the package together as soon as I determine what's going to happen with the foot scrub. And that will go out on Wednesday. So that's where I'm at. Now, I do have a really exciting thing next week. I thought it would be fun to take a break. I have a friend who is working with all of her home textile machinery and products, and she's been doing a bunch of stuff with wool from fleece to yarn and then knitting it up. Her name is Catherine Byers, and oh, shoot, she's not going to be here next week. She's going to be here on the 29th. So next week, I think probably what I might be doing is my boot, because the musician who made me some music did it on one of my favorite songs called These Boots Are Made for Walking. And so I'm going to use that as a backdrop to intro my boots. So anyway, it's been a great day. I thank you for joining me. I hope you've learned a few tips and tricks about all sorts of things. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, have a great week, and thanks for being here. Bye.